You're listening to The Courage to Live, a grief podcast hosted by the Child Neurology Foundation. Together, we're building a community for parents, caregivers, and all those who walk with the pain of losing a loved one to complex healthcare needs. We invite you to connect with us along your journey. You're not alone, and your child's story continues through you.
Welcome everyone. I'm Brad Thompson, and I'm the trainer for the Child Neurology Foundation. And you are watching our fourth edition of the Willow and Wind podcast. And before we jump in with our guests today, I just want to let you know that we tread on this ground lightly. We understand the seriousness of the things we will talk about. And we want you to know that this is a place that you can come in and out of. Don't feel like you have to watch the whole thing all at once. If what we're talking about gets a little heavy, the podcast isn't going anywhere. So just pause it. You can come back to it. And please, if anything that happens in this spurs a desire to have a conversation with any of us, please reach out, because it would be an honor to get to continue the conversation with you. I am so thankful tonight to get to introduce you to a couple of people that I call my friends. I've known Drew and Chandra Perkins for over 25 years, and we've been blessed to share a lot of life with us. Drew and Chandra are two of the people that are on Haley Thompson's list that when Brad and Karen have to go somewhere for work, she calls Drew and Chandra and says, "Hey, it's your turn. You get to keep me for the weekend," I think is kind of how it goes. And she thinks they are truly blessed to get to have her. And we are blessed that we have people like them in our lives. If you recognize Chandra Perkins, it's because she is pretty famous. She has been on the Today Show. She's been on the Jennifer Hudson Show, right? And so she's fairly famous. She's the executive director of Storybridge in Amarillo, and their mission is to make sure that every kid has books in their homes. And they're connected with Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. But beyond that, Chandra is just a phenomenal Christian lady who is a servant and passionate about children. And then there's Drew, and many of you may have seen Drew as well. It might have just been in a West Texas post office, but Drew is famous in his own right. And beyond that, Drew's the executive director of the High Plains Children's Home here in Amarillo, and his passion for kids and serving is just amazing. But the reason we have them here tonight is because nearly 25 years ago, they experienced what we all hope never happens to us. And they have a daughter, Amberly, who was born in July and lived about 3.5 weeks and passed. And their journey, getting a front row seat of their journey over these 25 years and watching them continue to live out in memory and honor of Amberly has been awesome for me, awe-inspiring, humbling, all of the things. And so, Drew and Chandra, I want to welcome you, and I want to thank you for being here and for sharing your story with us.
Of course, thank you for having us.
So I think one of the challenges that you face, and we want you to just tell stories. This is a conversation, but I think it's easy for people to go on about their lives, and it's easy in 6 months and a year and 5 years, but it's certainly easy for those of us who aren't with it every day to kind of go on about our lives and even not remember Amberly. And yet you carry that. What is that like? And how do you navigate that space 25 years later?
It's a great question, and I remember it being one of the early disorienting truths about grief. Was that, yeah, the world kept spinning even after ours seemed to stop. Like, cognitively, I understand that, of course, that is true, but just when that loss was so new and we were still in a lot of shock. I mean, just specifically, I remember like watching the evening news and thinking, there's news happening still? Or just driving down the road and just looking at people in their cars thinking, they have no idea my daughter just died, and that being really shocking and surprising on some weird level. And yeah, you're right. It took a while for that truth to settle. Of course, the people that knew us and people like you that walked that, our friends that walked that with us, didn't forget. But yeah, it was a slow realization that we've got to live in this world that kept moving. It was really hard.
And y'all are quite different personalities. So you didn't
Let me jot that down.
you didn't do this the same way, right?
No.
And especially early, Drew and I have had this conversation a few times that, man, y'all were super young and trying to start in teaching careers and coaching and all of the things and how, we talk about the fatigue of grief and just the physical impact of grief, and yet y'all didn't have the time and the space to stop. And so how, if you can remember, one of the things, it's 25 years and some of those things may kind of be a blur, but what was that like, and how did you navigate that as the world keeps spinning?
I think it's safe to say anytime you ask us how we navigated that, it's going to be pretty safe for us to say poorly in any arena. But specifically when it comes to the fatigue, yeah, we were, I was 24 and Chandra was 23. And I remember her funeral was the first day of two-a-days. And so that just gives you a frame of reference for the time of year. And
You might explain what two-a-days are
Oh,
for the non-sports people.
sorry. That would be the 2 weeks before school starts when you have two practices, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And being that young coach at a small school, or the relatively new teacher, you're drawing all the extra duty, and you're there early, you stay late. And so I don't know how you were at acknowledging the extra fatigue that was attributable to grief, because we were both wore out all the time and just thought, okay, this is adulting. You watch your parents come home every evening tired. This is what it is. And so I don't know how well I could parcel out how much of that was grief versus just being overwhelmed at the rest of life going on.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add there. It was regardless of the grief, a chaotic chapter of life. So it just added to the stress there.
Yeah. it's encouraging to know that there's not something wrong with me. I'm not broken when I have enough energy to get to the end of the day and that's it. And because I think that's the way a lot of us feel in grief. And when that's the case, we start to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Why am I not recovering? Or, I'm getting plenty of sleep. Why am I not, and so getting to hear that it's normal, right? That it's just fatiguing and exhausting. Now, as you've continued in life and you continue to remember, one of the challenges that a lot of parents talk to me about is the fear of forgetting, or the fear of somehow, in y'all's case, Amberly, kind of fading from the work of your family. What has that looked like for you guys, and what has surprised you, what has not, as you've kind of continued along this journey?
First is a scene in my memory with one of our sons who, we, after Amberly was born in 2001, then our son Cannon was born in 2004, and our son Creed was born in 2005. And so we had Amberly had two brothers that never knew her, but grew up hearing about her. And I remember early in their lives trying to make her part of their childhood somehow. We would take them on her birthday to the hospital and give, a little gift to the nurses there, try to mark that day for our family, her birthday. And a few times I'd take him to the cemetery. We'd talk about who she was and her story. And of course they saw me very sad on those occasions and somber, and I think they weren't sure how to handle me on those days, and I felt like I'm trying to inject this memory to them that they don't have, and they were just kids. And I remember on one of those birthdays, I think, I got out some photographs of her in the hospital, and I was just flipping through these photographs, and I think Cannon was probably 5 or 6 years old, and I was insisting that he sit there and absorb these photographs, and I was crying, and I had this moment where I could tell he wanted to go somewhere else. I could tell he wanted to leave them. And I think I said something like, don't you realize, what this means, or this story, or of course he doesn't realize.
No, ma'am.
No. There were several just layers of need going on for me. I think one of the consistent themes for me since that loss is just really searching for someone to share it with me, and so I didn't feel so lonely, and that included, unfortunately, my 5-year-olds. And so, over the years, I have done that in ways that I look back and think, oh, that wasn't great. But
I would say on the other side of the coin, though, I remember, and I'll butcher the setup of the story, but the gist is still the same. I remember, I think someone asked Cannon, so is it just the two of you boys at home, or do your mom and dad just have the two boys? And he said, no, we have a sister in heaven. Her name's Amberly. And so Amberly was has always been part of our story and hasn't been excluded. And honestly, probably the hardest part of that was before we had the boys. When we were, 25 and 24, people would say, well, do y'all have any kids? Do you have any plans to have kids? Well, how do you answer that? I've known you for 4 minutes, and I'm not sure you're ready for that train ride. And so, yeah, we didn't ever want to feel like we were excluding or dishonoring or anything like that. But at the same time, we didn't want to make those people feel terrible. No, actually, this is the first anniversary of us losing our child. And so, yeah, we didn't want to weight them down with that. But she has absolutely always been part of all 4 of our stories. And I think we navigated that for the most part without being too weird about it.
As best we could.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe it was weird occasion, but
yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I hear as Chandra's telling that story about Cannon that there's pain that mom has that her brother doesn't really know her and is not connected to her, and that breaks your heart, right? That he doesn't he can't share that memory and that remembering with you, and I can just my heart just goes, ugh, yeah, I can feel that. But as your boys have grown and they tell the story of the Perkins family being 5, it seems to me that you did a really good job of including her in the conversation. And did you ever feel like you weighted them down with not with talking about her, but did you ever get the sense that maybe, especially Creed, may have felt a little bit of a burden that he was living for more than just himself, that he was carrying the weight of more than just him?
Yeah, I don't think it was Creed. There was one night, I think it was Cannon, was crying, and still very young, and we went in and said, "Hey, Bud, what's going on? You're okay? What's the matter?" And he said, "I miss Amberly." And that was an interesting one to try and process. It was like he was projecting missing her, or trying to process not having her, but
also I think young, it was almost like losing Amberly or not having Amberly, or that hole became a little bit of a catch-all for negative emotions in the house. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Especially for the boys when they were young and couldn't distinguish a lot, couldn't name a lot of feelings. Yeah. But as they came to understand, well, if mom's upset, it might be about Amberly. So if I'm upset, it might be about Amberly. And they just would maybe label many emotions with her name.
Scared of the dark, or
yeah. And one of the things that we find walking this journey is that we end up messing up because we're so afraid of messing up. Like, I'm so afraid, I don't want to trigger Chandra, so I'm not going to ask. And by not asking, I leave you with the impression that I don't care or I've moved on, and that creates feelings in you. Stories about that with family, friends, people close to you, that where we were so afraid of hurting or offending or making it hard on another person that we kind of created a mess.
I would say this may not be this may be dancing around your question. I would say never be afraid to be present and to be loving. Where I feel like we trip up is we feel like we have to show up with the silver bullet, with the one phrase that's going to fix it, or here is the ultimate piece of wisdom that will set your life right in this storm. We have a good friend. Well, Brad, she's one of your friends as well, Susan Allen. And she, when we have had discussions about this, she said, there's only two things you need to do: show up and shut up. And I just appreciated that so much, you know. If you'll just show up, hug our neck, and tell us you love us, then, man, we're in a good place. Circling back to those friends who were not afraid to step into that space, we still get a text on her birthday from our friends every year. I mean, without fail. And it is simply to say, we remember. And that's it. And that does us a world of good. Because one of our biggest fears was that she wouldn't be remembered. 22 days is not a long time. And, a lot of the people who do remember her and do remember her story never truly laid eyes on her. They were in waiting rooms, and they were delivering meals, and they were, just loving on us during that time. Kind of on a tangent, it's also interesting, those people who have come into our lives since that have become good, close friends who weren't here for that part of our story. And I won't speak for you. I have not been good about categorizing them as not here for that part of the story. And it has really been a blessing, those folks who have said, like, I will mention something about Amberly, and they will say, I don't know that part. I don't know that part of your story. Would you tell that? Are you comfortable telling me that? Well, yeah, absolutely. At least for the two of us, telling her story is something we love to do. That's how we keep her alive and at the front of our memory. And so that has been an interesting thing for me in my friendships, is inviting people who weren't there for it into that circle with us.
You and I try not to make this an insider conversation because we've had so many of these, but there are stories that I think are so important because I think they're pretty common to humanity, but they trip us up in these moments of low resilience and high stress and high emotion. I remember you talking to me about how you really wanted to lean on your dad as a young man, and because dad was the guy that fixed things, right?
Sure.
He was the guy you could always lean on. And yet in this moment, your dad was just as big a mess as you were. And that created some, like, who do I count on if I can't count on dad? And I'd just like for you to hear, or to hear more about that for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the night Amberly passed away, Mom and Dad were actually driving in from Abilene. And as that was unfolding, we decided not to call them because there was nothing they could do on the road. And so when they got there, I had to go out and tell them. And I had been thinking that was probably an hour and a half. That time frame was an hour and a half before we found out that she was passing away and Mom and Dad got there. And so that whole time I had been thinking, okay, if I can just keep it gathered up until Pop gets here, I can hand that baton to him and I can be a mess. And man, I remember vividly telling them and him, very appropriately so, just breaking down and crumbling, And I told Chandra when we were talking about this this afternoon, that flipped a switch in me. And it was I have to be the one to hold it together. Because at the time I thought somebody's got to hold it together incorrectly. I was not in a mindset to where I thought it was okay for, hey, we're just all going to be a mess for a little while. And I really, unfortunately, held a grudge against him about that for a little while until I realized, man, in addition to him finding out he had lost a granddaughter, he was watching his son hurt and his daughter-in-law, who he loves to death, just be devastated. And so in navigating that as a family, me, Chandra, my mom, my dad, her mom, her dad, we were a group of 6 people who were crushed and hurt and dealing with our own devastations. And we all probably had some unspoken expectations of what we wanted and needed from each other. And since we didn't communicate well, we probably wound up with hurt feelings for reasons that we really didn't need to have hurt feelings. Had we have just stepped out on a limb and communicated just a little bit, it would have been a much healthier situation. Do you have anything?
The only thing I'm thinking is I just wonder if any of us knew what to communicate in the moment. Yeah. I mean, we, like Drew said, we were just barely adults. I mean, just barely adults.
I still fall in that category.
and nothing like this had ever happened in my family, to my parents' families, to Drew's parents' families. Nobody had faced the death of a child. So I don't know who would have known to say even, what are your expectations of each other? Of what do you need right now? I think we just all were in shock, and we all did what felt right to us,
Yeah. And that kind of feels to me like one of those situations I was talking about where, man, if your dad looks like he's okay, I'm not going to say anything to possibly, shake that up. And he's looking at you going, Drew seems to be holding it together, so we're gonna talk about the ball game or something rather than that, because so we keep it up there, and that way we don't dig the hole any deeper, and it leads to some conversation, right? And so, or lack of conversation, and the lack of communication creates larger gaps. Blake, if you're thinking anything, questions you want to throw at them, you feel free, just jump in. No one will be offended here as we just chat. Yeah.
So one of my biggest things that I noticed while we were talking is you guys talking about having more children. Bentley was my only child. He passed at 2 years old in 2025. I don't know if you know much of my story, but that is one thing that I want so bad is to. I'm still a mom. I'll always be Bentley's mom. But one thing that I struggle with is I'm scared. Like, I'm absolutely terrified. I want it, and it's a thing that's probably going to happen soon, and I'm so thankful for that. But at the same time, I'm terrified. Like, I don't know how, and maybe there's not a way to do it, but I don't know how to wire my brain to it's gonna like it'll be okay. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just one thing that like I kind of salute you guys for, is because I want that so bad, but I'm so scared. And then you being able to tell your children about them, that'll 100% happen with our future children. But like, I don't know, like, what age do you tell? Like, I don't know. Like, there's just so many questions that I have as being a first time mom and losing a baby. I've never been through this before, so I don't know. I didn't make it past age 2. So it's just hard for me to like, I don't know, put it into words, I guess, but yeah. That's one thing that's just been in my head this whole time.
That makes absolute perfect sense to both of us, I
Yeah.
think. So after we lost Amberly, Chandra got pregnant relatively quickly again, within 6 months, and then miscarried, and I was done. We'll adopt. We'll do something else. I was not emotionally equipped to move further with trying to navigate that road. If our experience was what having kids was going to be like, I wasn't strong enough to do that. And I think you were still really open to it, to having kids.
Yeah, I wanted kids.
But at the same time was very understanding of where I was. And so we rocked along for a year and a half, I guess.
Couple years.
And I came home from work one day, and there was a Hallmark card on the table, stood up, and Chandra wasn't home, which was unusual. So I open it and read, and it started basically saying, hey, I know you're probably not ready for this, but I'm pregnant, and I felt an otherworldly sense of peace come over me, and I think Brad will be the first to tell you I am not a otherworldly sense of peace kind of guy. I'm pretty nuts and bolts and make a plan and work the plan, and that's how things work out. And genuinely felt at peace about it. And that was canon. And it was a trying pregnancy. But he was born 36 weeks, and that's a different podcast talking about canon. We'll have to reschedule and do that story. But no, that Blake, if nothing else, I want to reassure you that, man, that's a normal feeling to my way of thinking. And if it is truly what you want to do, then it's okay to power through it and make a run at it.
I'm really sorry about Bentley.
Thank you. I'm sorry about Amberly.
We have a good friend that calls it the unfortunate fraternity, because it's, I mean, nobody wants to be in that club, but it is such an immediate bond that neither one of us exactly understands the other circumstances, but we have an appreciation for the hurt. And
Absolutely.
I'm really curious as to why Chandra chose to not be at home when you read that card, but that might be another podcast.
Well, I mean,
she can speak to that.
I knew he was afraid. I knew he was carrying more fear about that than I was. And I was worried about his first reaction to that news. And so I think the card said, deal with this shock of this news however you need to by yourself. And then I told him, I just walked to the middle school down the block and was sitting at the park there. And so in the card it said, I will be on the bench at the park when you're ready to
Come find me.
And as it
Good
turns out,
place. That's good too, Chandra. That's good. Yeah.
yeah.
And the jokester inside of me genuinely thought I should just make her sit there and see what
My goodness.
Yeah, it didn't take him long, and he
No.
was, and like he said, I think there was a divine component to the piece that he had there, because he definitely had been very vocal about, I'm too afraid and I can't do this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think one thing that I think I'm most terrified about is Bentley, up until 4 months old, was fine and healthy. And then at 4 months old is when his seizures started. And then it was just from there on. And I think one thing that I've even said to my husband, I'm gonna wrap my child up in bubble wrap. Like, there's not gonna be anything that like any slight fever, I'm gonna think, okay, we gotta watch him. There might be a seizure. Like, let's be on standby. And that's one thing that, like, which I know in our situations is different, but that's one thing I know I'm gonna have to rewire the brain for, is it's normal. Like, it's okay for a child to have a snotty nose, or it's okay for a child to run around and get overheated, because their bodies allow them to get back to normal, which Bentley's didn't. So it's just, that's one thing that I'm terrified about, is being that overprotective mom. But at the same time, I'm not, because I know nothing could have changed Bentley's situation, but a little voice in the back of my head is like, well, if you were just a little bit more protective, but his was genetic. So there's nothing that I could have done at all. But I just know that I'm going to be that Lysol crazy freak of a of a mom. I know it's going to happen.
Well, that's why the good Lord gives them dads too, because they kind of
Balances out. Yeah, Spencer will be my leveler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about guilt, self-guilt?
Our story was, she was very premature. I mean, I just went into labor with her at 24 weeks. And so she was only 1 pound, 13 ounces when she was born. And some babies at that time, at that gestation, made it. and some didn't. It was really a 50-50 proposition when she was born.
At the time, that was the first week of gestation they would consider a baby viable.
So yeah, our subsequent pregnancies were very high risk, highly monitored. And I definitely had even kind of recently still struggle with those questions. If only I had picked up on this or that, sign. If only my body hadn't been such a freaking failure,
Yep.
I have definitely dealt with those what ifs and self-blame for sure.
Thank you for saying that, and that you still have those thoughts and questions, because not because it makes life easy, but because it normalizes it for other people who feel the same thing and are still asking the same questions.
For me, like, I'm only a year into this, so I guess you could say I'm a baby to the club. And so, like, to see you guys 25 years later is just, it's amazing to me. Because, like, some days I feel like I can't make it. And so to see you guys sitting there and being able to say you made it like that, that is amazing to me. Because I feel like that just gives me a little glimpse at the end of the tunnel to know that that can be me. I'm gonna be okay. I can do this. This is sorry, I'm a mess. But
It's okay to be a mess.
Yeah.
Keep it rested.
but it gives me hope to see you guys sitting there and still talk about her all the time and keeping her memory alive. Like that's something I strive to be able to do. So it helps a lot to see you guys being able to do that.
Thank you.
And that is why I invited them to be on this podcast. Is partly I've had not a front row seat, but a close seat, and I, they're going to say no, they're not models and they're not blah blah blah. But they, Drew and Chandra Perkins, have been through what most people would consider to be the worst of the worst, and they continue going, and not only do they keep going, but they continue to pour into the lives of others, and so they have honored Amberly well for 25
Absolutely.
years. And that's the picture of hope that we want to be about, and it's the picture of hope that I want to present to the world of people who are experiencing this level of pain. And y'all are great pictures of it. So thank you for joining us. Is there any last thing that you like, I want somebody to hear this? If not, you can say no, but
Talk about, do you want to say anything?
I guess just, and this may be on your mind too, I just want to caution people that while there is life ahead and light ahead and joy ahead, man, that pain is always going to be part of you, always going to be part of your story and your family's story. And I think looking back on so she would have been 25 this summer. Looking back on these last years, on the last 25 years, there were times when I thought, even early, even in, at year one, I thought, oh, I'm fine. I'm okay. And then 5 years later would look back on that year one and think, I was not okay. I was still having residual, still coping, and still today coping with this being just a permanent, painful part of our story. And there's a lot of joy too in our life, and there's a lot of light, and our marriage has survived.
I appreciate you saying that, because it's a picture of this truth that two seemingly contradictory things can be going on at the same time. I can miss and honor, I can be sad and experience joy almost simultaneously, right? That there's a part of my heart that will never be whole, but I can still appreciate the good life that I have at the same time. And you paint a beautiful picture of that, and I appreciate that. Drew, sir?
You know, it's funny, you and I have talked about the grief is always there, you know, and if life is a road trip, the grief's always in the car, you know, and we'll go for long stretches of time where the grief is asleep in the back seat. It's there, but it's quiet in the back seat. I think Chandra is better at inviting grief to sit in the front seat with her and just be with it and experience it fully, and just be okay with being sad and hurting, and I'm like, get back in the back seat, you know. I think if we want to extend the metaphor, I think the thing is, you can't let grief drive the car. You have to be the one driving, and acknowledge that it's a passenger, but it can't control where you're going, how you're getting there, and things like that. The other thing I would say to couples specifically who are navigating this, when Chandra and I lost Amberly, I was 24, she was 23, had just turned 23. We were so ill-equipped to be married, or to be parents, or to lose a child, or to start new jobs, or we were just ill-equipped, period. And so us working through that together, man, we did that really poorly. Probably both individually in dealing with our grief, and as a couple dealing with our grief, and then as a couple dealing with each other's grief. And so if I could only say one thing, I would say respect how your spouse or partner is navigating that grief, and try to help them with whatever it is they need, while also being gently vocal about what you need from them to help navigate your grief. So just as an example, the day after Amberly's funeral, I went back to work. I needed normalcy and structure, and I needed to be around my kids, my guys, the kids I was coaching. And you had to have thought I was crazy or just a terrible person. And I looked at her and thought, how can you not get out of bed and just lay there and cry? And neither of us, I was going to say took the time. That's not the right terminology. Neither of us were equipped to pull out of the other what we needed. Is that a decent way to say that?
Yeah, and thinking back on,
I feel like we're a puppet.
back on
Let's do that.
those kids, if I just kind of replay that like a movie, I can see us at 23 and 24 trying to do that, and we just didn't know how. I mean, we were both trying to survive in our own ways, and so grief took us down different paths, emotionally, mentally, and over the years that has had to be addressed many times, revisiting that kind of fork in our story of just grieving differently.
Spencer and I were actually 23 and 24
Really?
when we lost Bentley. So Bentley passed away on February 2nd. Or no, I'm sorry, January 11th. His birthday's February 2nd. Mine's February 27th. Spencer's is February 14th. So our birthdays fell right after Bentley passed away. And so I do remember, Drew, you saying you want to go back to work. I can remember my husband wanting to go back to work so quickly, and I begged him. I was like, please don't go yet. Please, I needed him with me, and we lived with my parents. I say lived. We stayed with my parents for a little bit because he passed away in the house. And so it was hard for either one of us to come back home. But when we did come back home and he went back to work, I still couldn't be in the house alone. So I went and moped on my mom's couch for hours and hours and hours until he got off work, and I just couldn't be alone. And so to hear you say like you needed the normalcy, like that reminds me so much of Spencer. And then you saying that him saying that why are you staying in bed and crying all the time? Like, I just picture that was me and Spencer a year ago. And so it just like reiterates again, like to see you guys sitting there and it happened to you guys at the same age that it has happened to us. And I don't know, you guys are like my goal, I guess you could say.
Aim higher. Aim way higher.
Well, I want to say that Drew and Chandra have both said multiple times we did it poorly, and I would just wholeheartedly disagree. Not because you're my friends and not because I love you, but because anything that survives these tragedies is doing it well and continuing to grow and grow together, even as you do it differently, is an incredible example. And that's why I wanted you to be able to tell your story, because people are going to hear it and they're sitting there like Blake a year later going, I don't know. And here are these two very human people 25 years later, living a really faithful life. And so thank you for being willing to do this. Drew and Chandra have been on more than one adventure with Brad Thompson, and they keep signing up. So that just speaks to their mental instability. But thank you all, and we appreciate you sharing your story. Blake, thanks for jumping in with us.
Absolutely. It was a ride, like always.
Always. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Phil. There's
Back
Phil.
like I never left.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for having us.
And thank you for doing this work.
Yeah.
It's important, for
You know,
sure.
I know y'all have talked a lot, so if you just give me 2 seconds to just kind of add on to the encouragement. So we lost our son a month after Blake lost their son. Our son Lucas was 6 years old. Also died because of the condition that he was born with. My 15-year-old daughter, she's about to start driving, and so I was at a dealership today, and I had my 10-year-old daughter there with me, and he was a very sweet guy. And as we're walking back in, he's like, "Oh, you have 3 daughters? Did you try for that son?" And so I have a few tattoos that remind me of my son Lucas, and I've I use it as practice, and each time I try to be more graceful by the grace of God. I will not deny the fact that I did have a son. And so instead of just making it awkward and lying about it, I say, you know what? I had the sweetest little boy named Lucas. Can I show you a picture of him? And of course he feels bad, but I can't control how he feels. And so just kind of hearing that shared experience today and being in this fraternity together that we never wish we would have been in, but we are, you know, I hate to say it's encouraging, but it is encouraging to know that others are feeling the loss of a loved one so many years later and that it's still so raw. And I pray that it is, because I loved my son and love him so much. Like, he is not here physically with me, but the memory of him and just the way that I know that I loved him while he was here, I still love him that much, if not more. And I just can't wait till the day I get to see him again in heaven. So
Yeah.
Amen.
And man, I may be way too early to say this to both of you, and if that's the case, please forgive me. I have found that our grief is a very unique tool in our ministry toolkit. It has allowed Chandra specifically to step into some really unique spaces to love on people. And I would not have heard that well at all a year after I lost Amberly.
I would echo that, and I would just say, to smooth it a little bit,
Thank you.
it doesn't ever make that loss worth it. Nothing would make the loss worth it, but it does feed me a little bit to be able to have something to offer, even if it's just me. And it has been me just sitting next to somebody who's going through this and not saying a single word, but they know Chandra's been there, just to be present for people who know our story. It helps. Something about that helps me too.
Thank you for joining us for The Courage to Live, a grief podcast hosted by the Child Neurology Foundation, sponsored by BioCodex. Together, we're building a community for parents, caregivers, and all those who walk with the pain of losing a loved one to complex healthcare needs. We invite you to connect with us along your journey. You're not alone, and your child's story continues through you. More information available at childneurologyfoundation.org.